One. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Delusions of Grandeur. I'm your host, David Strege, and here in the room with me I have Boris, an interesting hoodie
Right.
from, where is it? Croatia again?
Yes. I'm from Croatia.
Yeah, you will often find him in black hoods, in white makeup, probably in an unholy shrine. But in any case, Uh, we are about to embark on a film discussion about a movie, probably the oldest one that we've gone on about, to be honest, from
oh,
1945. Um,
very true.
and it's directed by René Clair. And it's based on an Agatha Christie novel. And evidently it was the U.S. edition was released in January of 1940, but it was originally released in the United Kingdom by the Collins Crime Club on the 6th of
Ooh.
November in 1939 as 10 Little Niggers, after the minstrel song, which serves as a major plot point. But later in January of 1940, it had the title of "Then There Were None," which is taken from the last five words of the song "10 Little Indians." So, but let's get back to the plot of this film really quick. So, seven guests, a newly hired personal secretary, and two staff are gathered on an isolated island by an absent host, and someone begins killing them off one by one. They work together to determine who the killer is. Who could it be? Could it be one of them? So there's the rub. Now, what was your first impression of this film, there, Boris?
Well, I must admit, the movie was very good, very suspenseful. Near the end, it really had me on edge. It was really good. I I must admit, I didn't expect to get uh, how do I say it? I didn't expect it to be as exciting as it eventually was, and yeah, it was really thrilling. I was really curious to find out who the killer was going to be, and well. Uh, it did a pretty good job with the plot twists as well. I really liked it.
So this movie, as all the extant versions of the Ten Little Indians, is based not on the novel by Dame Agatha Christie, but on her similar play. While the identity of the murderer is the same in both versions, the survivors of the tale in each version are different.
Yeah, before we went live, I did a little bit of
So,
research.
so before you go on about that research, I was going to read the poem that this is somewhat based on. So the
Oh,
poem is
okay.
10 little Indian boys went out to dine. One choked his little self, and then there were nine. Nine little Indian boys sat up very late. One overslept himself, and then there were eight. Eight little Indian boys traveling in Devon. One said he'd stay there, and then there were seven. Seven little Indian boys chopping up sticks. One chopped himself in halves. And then there were six. Six little Indian boys playing with a hive. A bumblebee stung one, and then there were five. Five little Indian boys going in for law. One got into Chancery, and then there were four little Indian boys going out to sea. A red herring swallowed one, and then there were three little Indian boys walking in the zoo. A big bear hugged one, and then there were two little Indian boys were out in the sun. One got all frizzled up, and then there was one little Indian boy left all alone. He went out and hanged himself, and then there were none. In some versions, two little Indian boys playing with a gun. One shot the other, and then there was one.
Oh my! I must admit, when this poem or in the movie it was a nursery rhyme, but the text was pretty much the same as what you read, if I remember correctly. I must admit it made me wonder why some people write poetry or music about death and they make it for children.
Now, what did you find out in your research that you did that this movie inspired you to do?
Oh, well, I mostly read the plot of the novel, and I found out the ending was different from the one in the movie.
And how did that go? Do you know?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
How did the ending of the book go? Do you remember?
Well, from what I remember in the book, everyone dies in the end, just like in the poem, there are no survivors. Well, the person who did it all, we are probably going to reveal their identity later on. They survived the incident at the house, but they died later. So it kind of did end like the poem.
And what's real interesting, I actually went and saw a live play adaptation of this particular play, and one of my when I was growing up, we had an organist by the name of Deborah Kelm, and her husband was a stage actor, and he ended up playing like the mastermind, the one that was behind it all, and the reveal, seeing him be the person that was the murderer of them all. I mean, it was, especially since he went to my church. I knew him to be a Christian.
Oh,
I was very young and probably impressionable when he portrayed a criminal, a mastermind like that. That was kind of intense.
I can imagine.
I mean, when you think the people sitting next to you in church can become almost like these other people, even though you know he's just acting. I mean, it still amazed me to this day, and I will remember the performance. So.
Well, yeah, I think I haven't been in such a situation, but yeah, I can imagine it was probably really impressive.
But that being said, I myself, when I saw this, I did not expect the first time that I did not. This is not a first time watch for me. I've at least watched this 3 times, including this time, and I have been impressed every time. I mean, maybe it starts off a little slow, but as it builds, you get to go and enjoy the characters as they are, because all of a sudden, when that moment that record player plays and accuses every single one of these people of what they did. It's like a pin could drop in the room, and you all of a sudden you didn't trust anyone there. You know?
Well, yeah.
Like, what the fuck? Who do I believe in? Who do I believe in? I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. You know. So.
Yeah, like before I started to watch this movie, I knew it was going to be a murder mystery movie, and then this record plays, and suddenly everyone is a murderer. Apparently,
Everyone is a suspect. How do you do something where everyone is a suspect?
yeah.
How do you figure it out? Who's innocent from the guilty? Are they all guilty? Do they deserve to die?
Well, actually, not everyone was quite a murderer, but they all were. Well, okay, not all, but most of them were directly or indirectly responsible for someone's death. So,
Yes, but are we ordained to play God and shall I say enact justice? Because I would say that this is on the lines of almost a law-abiding citizen kind of a thing.
well, uh, actually, I don't approve of what the person in this movie did, the
UN
one who organized.
UNON, otherwise known as
Yeah,
Mr. Unknown.
yeah. Well, I don't approve of what that person did because many of the crimes of these people were not committed on purpose. Some of them were accidents and so on. So, yeah, this was not really the best thing to do.
Maybe not, but in a sense, they should have known that what their actions would have caused, you know, the reactions. I mean, and
Well,
the doctor evidently was a part of the whole thing, at least in here. But let's look at the cast of characters here in the plot. So we have a cast of characters of 8 who arrive by boat to this island that holds a mansion or a house or whatnot.
yeah.
And what happens is they are all invited by this UN character, the UN Owens, by some means or other. The first woman that we see hereabouts is a young
Uh,
lady who is supposed to be like Mr. Owen's newest secretary or something like that.
yeah.
Let's see if I remember correctly. What is her name?
Vera Claythorne.
Correct. It's played by June Duprez. What do you think of her particular character?
Well, I liked her. She was pretty good looking, and throughout the movie, well, there were multiple moments where the movie made you think she might be the one. Well, I kind of hoped she wouldn't be the one, and uh, yeah, I liked her quite a bit.
I liked her quite a bit too. Although she wasn't exactly forthcoming about what she might have been involved with. That's the one when she was accused. She was accused of killing her husband, I think.
Uh, wasn't it her sister's husband?
Yeah,
Uh,
and she didn't want to tell the truth right away. So that I didn't agree with. Everyone else
Well, yeah,
willing to come out in the open about what they might have done or done wrong, even if it was something that led to the deaths of these people.
yeah, the moment when she refused to reveal what she had done, it kind of made her a suspect, but at the same time, it, at least to me personally, it also made it look like it probably wouldn't be her because it would be too obvious.
Oh
And
yeah.
then, yeah, actually, she had pretty understandable reasons why she didn't want to reveal what had happened.
So we had a Judge Francis J. Quincannon,
Yeah.
played by Barry Fitzgerald. We had a Dr. Edward G. Armstrong, played by Walter Houston. We had a Detective William Henry Bloor, played by Roland Young. We had Philip Lombard, played by Lewis Hayward. We had Prince Nikita Starloff, played by
Mm,
Misha Auer. We had General Sir John Mandrake as C. Aubrey Smith, was played by C. Audrey Smith. We had Miss Emily Brent, played by Judith Anderson. We had Mr. Thomas Rogers, played by Richard Hayden. Ethel Rogers, played by Queenie Leonard, and Fred Narracott by Harry Thurston. So, 8 ended up going by boat. 2 being the butler and the cook were already there on the island. So when they all came, they were all told that this Owens character and his wife would be there later that evening.
yeah.
But instead, what they got a recording accusing them of killing someone or other, and they all looked guilty at that moment. And in the next room, there was a circle of Indian figures that were glass or porcelain or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
But
Something very breakable.
the first person who tells us about the 10 Little Indians, it just so happens to be Vera Claythorne. And then later, it was being sung on the piano by the Prince Nikita Starloff. And
Yeah.
right before he's told his story on how he was drunk one night and just ran a couple over.
Uh, yeah, that's.
So, what did you think about this whole setup? I mean, you get kind of what they were like on the boat going there. Some of them seemed a little snooty. The judge was smoking a pipe, and Miss Emily Brent was evidently trying to stay away from the smoke.
uh, yeah, well, I have to admit, I kind of wish we got more insight into uh, how each person was invited to go to the island and what made each of them accept to go in spite of things being so strange. I mean, they
Well,
all were invited by someone they didn't actually know yet. They all accepted it.
well, we got a little bit, but it was over time that we learned like the little bit.
Uh, Well, yeah, we did learn about some of them, but there were some things that were left kind of unexplained from what I understood.
Ethel Rogers and Thomas Rogers were already there on the island, and from what I gather, their previous employer evidently died under their care. Emily Brandt, I forget exactly what her ordeal was, but the General Mandrake, he was accused of killing his wife, and he kept seeing the ghost of his wife in Vera Claythorne every time she came by him afterwards.
Wait, did he kill his wife or his wife's lover?
I think both. Because there was a moment,
Oh wow.
a moment that he had where he was sitting out on the beach, and he talked to Vera uh, about or mentioned to Vera, why did you have to go and be with him or something like that? Why did you have to choose him as a lover? It's like he was reminiscing about you know what happened, at least in him.
Yeah.
As far as the judge goes, he said that he purposely was trying. He let an innocent man go to the be put to death, but it's more because he was trying to make the other side lose instead of caring about what that the man was innocent or not. But
Yeah.
and then the doctor, he supposedly was drunk, and supposedly he blamed the drink and not himself and his abilities for a patient.
Yeah.
The detective himself, he was accused of killing a man who evidently he'd been part of capturing, but he did not know later that he died in the prison or even went to prison. So he did not know later that he had actually died. And then if I see, that's the thing. I don't remember what Emily Brandt's one, but Philip Lombard supposedly was, I think he was the 29 African something or other, the Foreign Legion or something of that nature. He was at fault for killing 29 soldiers or some shit like that.
Something like that. Yeah, and actually, was it ever said why he killed those men?
Mm-mm. So, what do you think about each of the characters?
Well, not everyone was equally fleshed out as a character, since some of them die early on the movie and we don't get to find out much about them. But some of them got pretty interesting characterization. I kind of liked Philip Lombard because he was portrayed as a pretty intelligent man and pretty determined to find the killer. But I was kind of disappointed that we didn't get to find out why he apparently killed those men in the past.
I don't think he killed them at all because Later on, we find out that he was an entirely different person
Ah, oh well, yeah. Huh.
because
Yeah, yeah.
because of the name on his suitcase. He just told the detective a totally different name, and he was just so happened to be a suspect that apparently the detective was looking for, and he gave him a different name. But Philip Lombard,
Oh yeah.
Philip Lombard,
Yeah, I forgot.
yep, Charlie something or other. I forget the name of the name. Charlie Munt. It started with an M,
Uh,
the last name. But what did you think about the house, the place that they were in?
well, the house looked pretty nice. It was like a really big house, and it was pretty nice to see. I would like to visit some place like that. Well, but I wouldn't like to have an experience like that there.
Well, yeah, it seems like it was a relatively big place. It had a kitchen, a foyer, a grand staircase of sorts, dining room, and a guest room, if I remember correctly, a living room area, and of course you had the veranda out front, and the cove and the beach down below. So, oh, and it had a fire shed, which has something to do with the butler, because I thought it was interesting how each death was different, and um, how it all pertained to the nursery rhyme. What did you think of the nursery rhyme itself?
Well, like I said, it made me wonder why someone would write a song or a poem about death and make it supposedly a song or poem for children. Like, wouldn't children be rather scared or saddened after hearing something like that?
So ultimately, the guests begin to die, and they begin to die. Oh, and they all seem to be following the poem.
Uh, yeah. I actually wondered how some deaths would look like because I realized they all had to resemble what's said in the poem. So I wondered how uh, they were going to perform some of them. But yeah, eventually they did include all the symbolism from the poem in what happened.
Yep. So the first one ended up being the prince, where he was drinking and drinking and drinking, and evidently what happened is that he drank some kind of a poison, which ultimately killed himself. And then, of course, the doctor, after the recording had finished, the Mrs. Rogers had um, fallen over and fainted. So
Yeah.
doctor actually gave her some sedatives, or some kind of a sedative to help her sleep during the night. Mysteriously, she died in her sleep the next morning. So that was the nine little Indian boys sat up very late. One overslept himself, and then there were eight.
Yeah, when Yeah, during the poem, I was kind of wondering what this overslept himself meant, but yeah, in in the movie they did perform that murder with symbolism related to that.
And of course, the doctor is asked the question: didn't you give her something? Did you over give her something? And he was like, I am a doctor. I should know exactly how much to give a patient.
Yeah, well, uh,
Evidently, she
that.
for some reason. But
Yeah, but
in any case, I think the next one was the general, where
yes.
he went down to the beach, and shortly afterwards, he was never seen again.
Yeah, they only brought back the supposed murder weapon.
And then the next one, and because, um, and I think it was then that we suspected that it was the one lady, Emily Blunt, or the because she had actually gotten up early, gone for a walk, and she was acting kind of peculiar. The doors were locked and everything. They'd locked the doors, given the key to the fucking butler, and you know, and the door was unlocked. Or wait, no, that was when the butler went to bed. That was after because one chopped himself in halves. That's right. Seven little Indian boys chopping up sticks. So apparently, after all of this, the butler was actually getting quite drunk that night, and he went to sleep in the shed because he didn't trust sleeping in the house.
Yeah, or because the other guests didn't trust him enough to have him sleeping there.
Correct, because they did this voting thing of who they thought was the killer.
Oh yeah, and he got two votes.
Yep. So he was like, "Fuck this! I'm not sleeping in the house with you guys." So, so he goes out with his axe.
Yeah,
Of course, they give the key to him that closed everything, and somehow the lady got out, was able to unlock the door and everything when she didn't even have the key.
yeah, her behavior was strange, and a part of me thought she might be the killer, but at the same time, I kind of believed she wouldn't be because earlier you said I would never guess who the killer was going to be, so I knew she would be too obvious.
Did you guess who the killer was?
Well, not quite, but well, what I'm going to say now is going to be a bit of a spoiler, but
We were going to spoil the shit out of this movie anyway. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know that already, then I don't understand why you're listening to us.
yeah, well, there was this part in the movie when Miss Brent was dead already, but someone still suspected her, and like maybe she's not dead, and they went to check that she really is dead. Well, at that point, I found myself considering the possibility that some of the victims might have faked their death and that some of them would be the killer. So uh, that's what I did predict, but I didn't predict which one of them it was going to be.
Neither did I at first. When I first saw this, I didn't remember who entirely did it this time around too. Until like I was like, oh yeah, oh yeah, okay, you know. So I mean, it's just that kind of a mystery where if you don't see it for a while, to me, every time it still surprised me in some way, shape, or form. And there's about the performances of each of the characters, how they're just so bewildered of each other, and how they're the perfect cast to be able to portray that area of untrust, especially when they're alone. When all of a sudden it's just two of them alone in a room, it's like, oh fuck, we're alone. Mr. Lombard, Mr. Lombard.
Yeah, yeah. Mm, well, I must admit, I kind of wish they didn't include this part where they suspect an already dead person to be alive and to be the killer, because, like I said, it made it kind of predictable that some of the supposedly dead people would be the killer eventually.
Well, it was an interesting plot, and the fact that they kind of did it twice in a row. The thing is, you didn't expect the first one. You knew the second one was going to happen. The other one you didn't even know was there. Because when he picked a gun and saw that bullet hole, that looked like a real bullet hole. But then when they went back and showed exactly what happened, of course they showed it a little bit differently, where dude actually looked up at the doctor before he examined him and winked at him. but when he turns back to the others, to all appearances, he is dead. So just because they didn't know, you know. But then that's why I think Philip Lombard went and said, "Hey, I think that's what they want you to do. I think they want you to kill me." And because they were so far away on the beach, if she pointed the gun off somewhere and didn't shoot him, and he just fell over dead, that person up at the house that was still there would still be able to assume would assume that he is dead. So,
uh,
but then again, we didn't know that he was already a dying man.
Uh, yeah, well, the way they performed the whole thing with Lombard's supposed death was pretty well done. Actually, when Vera shot him and he fell down, I actually thought that he really was dead. He did mention something that he wouldn't really die or something, but then he dropped down, and I thought that he had miscalculated
Well,
something,
and of
and
course,
that
when she went upstairs, um, when they heard her scream and then a shot rang out, that's when everybody ran up with those candelabras, and that's when the lights went out, and you didn't know what the fuck to think. She she had evidently felt something that was like a hand and shot at something or someone, or at least that's what she thinks. And then, of course, I kind of didn't entirely expect the detective to not fully realize that something was about to fall on his ass. So the when he was looking down at the beach.
uh, uh, yeah, yeah, that was a pretty shocking scene.
But
Although,
what did you think about the Detective Bly?
mm, well, actually, I have to admit, while I was watching the movie, I ended up forgetting what he was originally accused of. So, well, he seemed like an okay character, but I didn't form a very strong opinion of him, neither positive nor negative. But yeah, he made an interesting part of
Well,
solving the mystery.
he was a PI. To me, he was like a Pinkerton detective. And so he had something to do with the law. I think if he inadvertently caused the death of someone, it wouldn't have been of his own entire making. It wasn't his fault that the man that he put in prison eventually died in prison. To me, he was like the more innocent of them all, to be honest. Um,
Well, yeah, yeah. Like I said, I originally forgot what he was accused of, so I didn't realize what you are saying now. But yeah, good point.
so, what do you think about the movie on a whole? Would you recommend this to other people?
Yes, yes, I would definitely recommend it. It's definitely one of the better murder mystery movies I have seen so far. Although I haven't really seen many, but this one really was good. My only complaint is that, like I said, when they suspected an already dead person to be the killer, it kind of makes us consider the possibility that some other supposedly dead person might not be dead and might be the killer, which makes the final twist a little predictable. So yeah, that's why probably my biggest complaint about the
And
movie. But
this,
other than that, it was really good.
see, in this movie was quite some years before Dark and Stormy Night. So
Oh,
in a way, in a way, um, that kind of movie um, is what this movie is kind of, because that was a whodunit kind of a movie, you know, and it seemed like everybody had something to do with a murder or something like that, you know. So um, to me, that's why I wanted to go back and do this particular one. Now there is a
yeah.
now. What did you think about the special effects of the film, or the practical effects, should I say? I mean,
Well, one thing I noticed is that we actually very seldom see a dead body in the movie. Like when someone is killed, we either don't see them at all, or we see only feet or something like that. But yeah, we usually don't see the bodies.
well, yeah,
And
that was an interesting moment. I think that's my one of my favorite moments too, where the doctor and the judge, I think, are as well as Philip Lombard, are out in the wood near the woodshed, and they see the door to the woodshed is open, and then they see that these sticks of firewood are on the ground where an axe is actually laying there. So they are wondering if Rogers is still indeed the murderer when Philip Lombard spots his feet that are
Oh,
laying like in our view sight, but not in their view sight per se. You know, so
yeah, actually, I really like how they shot that scene. Like there is a moment when the camera moves a bit to show Mr. Rogers' feet, but at first you don't really. Well, at least I didn't immediately realize that those were somebody's shoes and that it was a dead body. But then when Lombard pointed it out, I went back to watch the scene again, and only then I actually noticed this moment when the camera moved to show the feet, and it was pretty interestingly done.
so I just found something out. Apparently, in recent years, it has come to light that Agatha Christie's plot appears to have been inspired by a little-known 1930 play by Owen Davis titled "The Ninth Guest," which utilized the same framework of people being brought together by an unknown host who proceeds to kill them one by one. Columbia Pictures' atmospheric movie version, The Ninth Guest, filmed in 1934, had never been released on home video, but is now in the public domain and can be found on eBay and iOffer.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know.
I'll have to look it up to see if I can't find it, so that maybe we can go back and watch that one to see it, see how that fall. If that one seems like it's similar to this one, eh?
Well, we could. Why not?
But in any case, did you notice any? Did you notice any music that was involved with this?
Well, I did notice one strange vinyl record. I'm sorry, I had to. Well, I must admit, as this was my first time watching the movie, I didn't really pay much attention to the music, and aside of the poem, this nursery rhyme, the Ten Little Indians, there wasn't any song that was standing out. There was only instrumental background music, but yeah, I didn't pay much attention.
So, well, I thought it was somewhat entertaining. The music. Let's see. The music was. Let's look here. Really quick. Should be able to find that out. Who was involved behind the music? So the music itself, the music department, the musical director. Let's see. The music was by Mario Castelnuovo Tedesco. Now, let's see. His music was in Mask of the Avenger, the Loves of Carmen, Time Out of Mind, The Giant Claw, Zombies of Morotau, Earth versus Flying Saucers, The Werewolf of Treasure Mountain, Creature with the Atom Brain. So he was definitely in the horror realm of things when Thief of Damascus, a Sword and Sandal kind of movies. Seems like he was in a lot of adventure movies. Oh, he did the Crime Doctor's Diary. Uh, that's an interesting series. The Crime Doctor's Gamble, Crime Doctor
Ooh,
Hunt, The Devil's Mask. So there are a lot of films during the 40s and the 50s that he was very much a part of, and I guess uh, there is a movie called The Maestro in 2018 that is a study of his work, I guess, um,
whoa.
in 2018. So that should be interesting, maybe down the road to check out. If uh, I guess that's a documentary or biography, drama, history kind of a thing. But in any case, okay, going. What was your favorite scene?
Uh, well, I think it would probably be, although it's probably uh, a kind of obvious choice, but the final encounter with the killer, and especially the moment when Philip Lombard returned and when we found out that he had not died, that really surprised me. And before he returned, I really thought the movie was going to end like the poem, like they were all going to die. So it was really surprising that some of them actually survived, and I was actually glad that it ended the way it did, because throughout the movie I kind of liked Lombard and Vera as a couple, so I'm glad it ended the way it did.
I'm glad it ended the way it did too, because then it gave some people a chance to survive, if anything, you know. So, but
Uh,
was there anything else about the film that you wanted to talk about before we end this small conversation about? I mean, it was a pretty straightforward plot. I mean, some of the characters were fleshed out. Some of them were not quite so fleshed out. Was there a particular character that you enjoyed more?
well, like I said, I enjoyed Lombard and Vera. Aside of them, oh, well, I kind of liked the Doctor too,
I did too.
although, uh, yes.
I said I did too. I kind of did like the Doctor, even though he had his um he had his moments.
Uh, well, yeah, but yeah, he was an interesting character as well, and it was pretty surprising when it turned out that the judge is the killer. Although, in a way, it also makes sense because he, being a judge, can probably access all the files and find out who did what in the past, or at least who was suspected of doing what.
Definitely. I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was. It was definitely um, uh, uh, point your finger at the next person to be the murderer kind of a film. You know, I don't trust you. I don't trust you. I don't trust you. I don't trust you. I'm going to bed. You know, that kind of thing, and be like, be on your guard. You never know who might have been the murderer.
Indeed.
But in any case, I appreciate your time spent on this picture. I certainly enjoyed it. I'm glad that I was able to share it with you, and I'm glad that you have a like of the classic cinema to that way we can cover a lot of things. I mean, not many people will be of your age group actually enjoy the black and white era like I do. So,
Uh, well, actually, I have to admit, I became more open towards all sorts of movies. I mean, I got interested in B movies, which we know aren't everyone's preferred kind of movie. So, when I originally got fond of B movies, I learned to uh, follow the story of a movie, and even if some things aren't what I would usually go for, I can still appreciate the movie if the story is good. So, yeah, I didn't really expect this to be a bad movie only because it's old or because it's black and white. I just went to see it and see how it goes. And it, it was really good.
well, it's also very quotable movie too. Nobody in the general's room, not even the general, or uh, maybe we've been wrong. Built up a nightmare out of imagination. Two people dead isn't imagination.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So you see, the whole thing has been as inevitable as in a nursery rhyme. When the boat arrives from the mainland, there will be 10 dead bodies, and a riddle no one can solve on Indian Island. That's another thing. The island was actually called Indian Island, um, which was cool too. Who would have thought or imagined that there was an island out there called Indian Island, where
Mm.
the 10 little Indians would thereabouts be enacted out. And you'd have a situation like Roanoke, where nobody was left alive. Well, actually, Roanoke was different. Everyone disappeared, but there was no sign of anything, whether they were dead or alive. So that was a totally different story. But on that note, I think shall. Um, you know what? I think I will. We'll go about. I know that I said we were going to go on about Lord of Tears next week, but I think I want to follow in the line of some of these films that we've been covering the whodunit kind of story line. I love this genre. So let's go with the original. And I haven't seen this film yet, but I do have a copy of it. It's called
Yes.
Haunted Honeymoon.
Oh, nice. I haven't seen it either. So,
Well, there's an original one from like the 1940s, which I picked up not too long ago, and I have not watched it yet. So that'll be a first for me. But there's a remake that was done in the 70s with Gene Wilder and Gilda Radner when she was still alive. So um, that should be interesting. Maybe we can make it even a double feature of both
oh,
of them, like a comparison. And then
we could.
after that, I was thinking we could do High Spirits, which was a comedy from back in the day. I think you'll enjoy it. So I think that's about all that I'll plan out in the future for right now. I just kind of wanted to do a few of these whodunits because I'm since watching this has gotten me into more interested in rechecking out some of these so-called mystery house ghostly things, things that go bump in the night, murder afoot, kind of a movies. So,
Yeah. Well, I don't mind.
alrighty. Well, in any case, thank you for listening, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great evening, morning, wherever you are. Much of this movie was actually filmed, I believe, at a studio in Santa Monica, California. So, and René Clair, let's see, he was involved. Let's see, René Clair. He was a French director, and he was involved in the Phantom of the Moulin Rouge. Oh wait, let's see, Phantom of the Moulin Rouge. Let's see, the Ghost Goes West. Oh, I happen to know him in that one. I Married a Witch. That was one that he did sometime before this. But yeah, I happen to know him on one other movie. I had picked up I Married a Witch when it first came out on the Criterion Collection. So, but in any case, thank you for listening. Have a great day, evening, or morning, wherever you are. Boris, why don't you say goodnight to the audience? And then we
Thank
shall.
you. Thank you all for watching, and thank you. Yes?
Alrighty.